Hey everybody, welcome to How the Sausage is Made with Chris Cosentino, where I talk with chefs, restaurateurs, athletes, philanthropists, and pretty much anybody that inspires me. We look below the surface, behind the curtain, and dig deep into how these people got to where they are today. Wins, losses, and everything in between. All right, everybody. Today, I have Chef Bryan Voltaggio with me here all the way from Maryland. I think he's in Maryland right now. Are you in Maryland right now?
I'm in Maryland right now, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Maryland is his home, but he's all over the place. So, Bryan, thanks for taking time. I know you've been really busy. I know it's crazy time for you with the restaurants and family stuff because school's out and the kids are running wild. So thank you for joining. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and thank you for being patient and working around the schedule and getting me, wrangled in for this one today. So I appreciate it. And it's always great talking with you. So I can't wait to jump in.
No worries. We all have busy lives. And I think having a little empathy and patience, I think, is really important in these days. And I get it. And this is just an hour or whatever it takes to get her done. And it's just a good way to catch up with friends. We have talked a long time over these years about evolution of craft, evolution of the individual getting to their certain point in their career. And I think everybody's trajectory is different. Like, it's kind of a unique situation for you because you and your brother are both chefs and you both got there different ways. And I think it's really interesting because everybody chooses a different path, right? And I think it's always interesting to hear the start. What was that firecracker moment that you said, I want to become a chef, and what road you took to get to where you are today?
Yeah, no, you're right. Both Michael and I, starting out early in our career, definitely took paths that were two different paths. I mean, that we would honestly, advise people who are coming up in our career to take, either one. So, I mean, I think it's kind of an interesting story to tell. And on top of it now, I mean, we've also just come together, right? Because Michael and I can respectively, we opened our own restaurants, ego was driving everything versus, being business minded. And, it was like, go out there, be the best, be the best. It was just sort of competitive, brotherly rivalry we had, but also like we were just, we're young and starting out in our careers, but now we're partners and now we work together. Going back when we started at a little hotel called the Holiday Inn in Frederick, Maryland. We both started here in our hometown, like where I'm at right now. I started as a busboy early on. Michael wasn't even working at the time. And then I ended up getting into the kitchen. I asked the chef, hey, if I take a vocational program in high school, will you hire me? Because it looks like knives, fire, and clanging pans and cussing, like, and the camaraderie, that you saw like in the kitchen, despite, it was on the edge of like, we cooked stuff from scratch. You know what I mean? But it was still
that's what's interesting. I mean, and what year was this?
This was early 90s.
So think about that. At that point, everything was still being made.
For sure. 100%.
You weren't getting like pre-made everything at that point. No. That's evolved, right? That's new. That's a newer thing, but like all those like Howard Johnson's, Holiday Inn, when you were cooking in there, it was you were cooking, right?
Yeah, a couple cans got opened here and there, but for the most part, we were cooking. You know what I mean?
But I mean, canned tomatoes and all those things, that was the norm. And that still is the norm. But true cooking was actually happening in those spaces. And I think that is forgotten, right? Because now everybody knows the new version. But the version that we grew up with, you were still cooking. It was like for real.
Yeah, no, and it was. So that's where we kind of cut our teeth and started out. Michael ended up working in the kitchen too at the same time. And then it came a point where I don't know if it was by choice or just because we felt like we were so like already immersed in this, and we're getting some offers. Like, I remember when, Michael got a phone call to go work at a country club and he left and he went. He left the hotel and went and he worked for somebody, who had connections to the Greenbrier. And that's how Michael got into the apprenticeship program down there. And at the same time, I started pursuing going to the Culinary Institute of America, CIA. I, claim independence for my parents, like, because I had to get my own student loans. Like, there's no means for us to get there. So like, I had to wait until I was almost 20 to go. And then finally I left Frederick and went to school. So Michael went and got paid to go to school, and I had paid to go to school. I mean, so those are two different pathways that you can, that you can explore. If there's, a young culinary, student out there, like, trying to decide, maybe they don't have the means. Apprenticeship programs are out there, and it's something that you could go after. You could do that, and it'll open up the same doors, that I believe that the CIA opened for me. I mean, Michael and I can both prove that, right? And so, he went off and he did that. And then we came together in New York for a short period of time. I was working for Charlie Palmer at Oriole, and Michael ended up coming up and staying over the summer. And he worked, it wasn't summer, sorry, it was a winter time, because the Greenbrier closed for a period of time. Like they did. The interns were, and the apprentices were sent off. Either Michael, one year, I think he was fabricating deer, in West Virginia, like that, to get through one season. And then the next season, or I think the first season, he came up with me, and we're living in New York in some small apartment that had like 12 guys living in it. It was like one of those things. Right? And he worked at American Place for Larry Forgione. And so he spent the winter there. And that was when I was on my internship from CIA.
So you did your internship with Charlie Palmer.
I did my internship with Charlie. And then after that, once I completed my internship, I actually still went down on weekends. Like I stayed with the crew because I that kitchen at the time, it was all cooks I wanted to work with. Like everybody was pushing each other. It was a good team. Like we all got along. We all became friends. Like I would come down on weekends and stay at my buddies' apartments and then work, and then go back to CIA on Sunday night and get ready for school the next day. So I then, Charlie offered me a job upon graduation, and I graduated December 9th of 1999, and I was back on the line, I think December 11th or 12th. Like it was like 1 or 2 days just for me to unpack my shit out of my dorm and then move down to New York. And I was in the kitchen like 2 days later working.
And to drive back and forth, like to go from school to the city, that was what, 2.5, 3 hours?
Yeah, I had countless parking tickets. Like it cost me way more money than I ever earned, the $100 that I got working a service down there just to even go there. But I did it because, I was pursuing this career, and I wanted to work in kitchens like that. And I wanted to, upon graduation, be accepted into one in New York City. I felt like that I was going to hit like some sort of like, benchmark in my schooling and like, what I was trying to achieve. Like I felt like this was like, recruitment at the highest level coming out of culinary school. And I did whatever it took to get there.
And, it's interesting. A lot of folks that have talked about working for Charlie say working with Charlie was like playing on a really great football team. Like he really knew how to lead the team.
Yeah, no, he did. And I worked with him in that kitchen at Oriole when this was right around the time before you opened Oriole in Vegas. So this was like, you had several restaurants that are in the city, but he was, first starting his expansion out west. So he was there like, all the time. And, so I worked with him in that kitchen. But fortunately, I stayed there for a long, and yes, he put together an amazing team. We always had, every service, no matter what, everybody was going into it, as a team, like, because I see it now, like sometimes like, young kids are coming in for the first time in the kitchen, they're kind of focused just on getting their station set up and they're not looking left or right of them, and it's the culture that we are still trying to instill into our team here. We're doing a really good job in our restaurants, both Michael and I, doing that. But you could tell that that's just not, commonplace everywhere now.
No,
where it was there, you know what I mean? It was, and that's what I learned, so for me, that's the only way I know, you know what I mean? When I was in young, impressionable age as a cook in my 20s, I was taught that we're all in this together. It's about the guest experience. It's not about how you are performing an individual station. It's about the entire service. And it's about the entire front, back house. Like it's one house, it's one service. We're here to take care of those guests out there who are paying our paychecks,
Yeah.
That was something I learned for sure. So I'm glad you brought that up because, our industry now, I will say some of that is starting to wear away. And I feel like that it's important to keep that intact because hospitality takes a team, not one individual. It really does.
Exactly. And I think there's like, if everybody on the line needs chives, one person cuts chives, distributes to everybody. One person picks parsley, distributes it. It doesn't need to be a situation where one person, and it does, they get hyper blinders focused only on themselves, their own station, and the person next to them could be going down like the Titanic. and they sit there
I
and
know.
watch. And
Yes.
that is not a team,
No.
There's that old saying, there's no I in team except for the a-hole.
Yeah.
If you look at
Yeah.
the capital letter A, looks like an I, right? So it's when you're so focused on yourself and not everybody else around you,
Yeah.
you end up missing your timing. You end up missing getting set up. Your plates
Yeah.
don't come up correct. And it really just is unfortunate for the guests, truly.
Yeah. And I don't want to go on a tangent of like, people should be taking care of themselves, right? And they're
Yes,
like, so that's definitely changed, like, in our industry for sure. It's like, getting time off and not working, 80 hours a week. Like, those things I appreciate. We're starting to try to build and maintain a business model that works, you know what I
but
mean? So
that's
we can pay the
different.
bills.
But that being together.
No, I know, but I feel like sometimes there's still people who are just like, they get the blinders on and just are, solely focused on themselves and not wanting to be a part of the team. And,
Exactly.
so when I look at things, like when I'm looking at resumes and stuff, I mean, I'm looking at what else you've done outside the kitchen. I mean, if you have anything there, like, well, I'm activities I do, like I'm on the club softball or kickball league in town, like the beer league or whatever. But like, all right, cool. Like you get around and you like to be around people and you like to work as a team and have fun. You know what I mean? Like to me, that's a strength. Like I'd rather see that on a resume. You know what I mean? Be like activities. If it's like activities I like to, you know, go on like long hikes by myself and ignore the world. Well, I mean, okay, well then I guess you don't like really being around people and being a part of a team, right? I've never seen that. I'm just saying, if that was on a resume, I'd be like, all right, tell me more, right?
It
And
tells more about the individual and their
yeah,
lifestyle.
yes, for sure. So I enjoy and I actually advise people to share more about their life experiences too when they're joining a kitchen. And I believe it's building a team and family, but I believe in individuals too. Like it's not just about creating one homogenous team. Like, I like, cause I love that we're also bringing in people that have had different experiences in different kitchens and are bringing new perspectives. And, I'm constantly, a constant student of what we do. Like I'm always learning and I know you are too. And, those who are, have been doing this for a long time believe in that. And, fortunately now at this level where I'm at in my career, both my brother and I, we're fortunate to work with teams and people that care about what they do. And they also bring ideas to the table and they bring experiences to the table that we might have overlooked or, and opens up new doors for us to be creative. So we definitely enjoy, making that a part of the culture in our restaurants.
So you're at, you're with Charlie. What was that next step? Because Charlie's growing,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
So, when I was there, this is, up until 2000, and three, I guess I was there. And fortunately for me, when I worked in that kitchen, a lot of chefs, a lot of cooks, like at that time, and I had offers. Like I could have went to Danielle, could have went to, when Ducasse opened. Like one of my sous went there. He was like, "You're coming with me," and I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay here." Charlie started to expand, and Charlie ended up hiring chef de cuisines. And so he hired Jerry Hayden, which was the first CDC who took over Oriole. And so I worked with Jerry for a few years, and he was an incredible mentor. He is somebody who I definitely, he gave me my first sous chef position at Oriole, and I worked for him. And I worked for him up until I think it was 2001. And around that time, he left to go open his own restaurant. And I was going to go work for him. And Charlie convinced me to stay. And I stayed at Oriole. And, part of me, I like, I don't know what it would have been. I would have loved to have gone and helped Jerry open that restaurant because he was the mentor, and I probably should have. It's, one regret. I could have went down there and done that with him. But, at that time, then Dante Bacuzzi came in. So I worked with him, so I had another sous chef or another chef de cuisine. So for me, I was in a very comfortable kitchen seeing three different perspectives, and Charlie gave them, some autonomy when it came to the menu. I mean, Charlie was very involved in what was going on to the menu, but I mean, these guys were driving the culinary force behind it, right? And they were, bringing things to the table. So I got to see new perspectives in the same kitchen I was comfortable with. So I was learning more as a cook. For me, it was beneficial to be be able to not have to go in and start over and then like, work your way up again. Like I was seeing three different perspectives under the same roof. So that's why I stayed, because normally you would move around, so that was my choice. And then 2003, Charlie said, "Hey, you want to move home?" It's like, "I'm opening this restaurant in DC and I want you to go down and do it." So I went down, I opened Charlie Palmer Steak for him on Capitol Hill, and I was there for 5 years. Yeah.
That's commitment to an individual. And I think that is something that doesn't happen as much anymore.
No, a lot of people now, like, to the point of it's advised to, like, if you're a young cook, especially if you're listening to this now, like, I encourage you to go work in as many kitchens as you can, but respect the time that you're going to be there, communicate, let them know that you're going to be there for a certain period of time, not like, give them, 6 months notice, but like give substantial notice, have them help you get into the next role, wherever you're going to go. Like I encourage transition into different kitchens and absorbing as much knowledge as you can as a cook, but never leave anybody hanging. Do it in a way that you're doing it the right way, but, move on and get as much experience as you can in a few years, and then start, aspiring to move up the ranks. But you got to be a cook before you become a leader in this. And, for me, sticking around though, I got to work with lots of different cooks though too, because the cooks transition. So like, I learned management styles. I, really started to understand how to be that coach, that I learned from like Charlie and Jerry and Dante to be able to lead a team. So I felt confident when it was time for me to go open a restaurant for somebody else that I could do it. It was the scariest thing I've ever done, but I was pretty successful in doing it when we opened.
That transition from being the sous chef to the chef, I think, is really daunting for a lot, but also it's that golden carrot, right? That people are striving for. They don't realize what comes with it.
No, they don't. For me, it came with an immense amount of responsibility, right? I'm working for somebody who I aspired to work for when I was in culinary school. I finally got my shot. Now I'm going to go open something that has his name on a door. And that's a lot of weight to carry around, right? To make sure that you're going to go in and be successful with it. What Charlie did though, when I opened that restaurant, is that he was, and not that it was about this, don't get me wrong, but he did, let me have a voice in writing parts of the menu. Like I helped to drive the culinary vision for what Charlie Palmer Steak was going to be in DC. He, had final say and sign off on everything, but I brought things to the table. So that was a proud moment for me. And then he let me talk to, people who were writing about the restaurant about it, and that's not always typical. But I also had a lot of responsibility. I mean, it was only like a year and a half in, and he had actually parted ways with the general manager, and I just assumed a role. So for another like 3 years and 2.5 years, I think it was, I had dual hats. I was wearing a toque and a and a tie. Like I was a GM and a chef. Like I was running the entire property.
Did you find that? And I think this is really interesting because as that cook, you always see that I want that job. I want to be that guy, right? And then when you get there, there's a lot of people saying, I really want to be cooking again. People forget the cooking vanishes.
Yes. Come full circle, and I'll fast forward to where I'm at now. I don't expedite. You know what I mean? If I do, I have to do it like, you know what I mean? Like our CDCs do that. Michael and I, we go and we cook with the team. If I'm, in service, I'm cooking and plating food. Like that's what I love to do. I finally get to be the cook again. Like we're in there doing the creative force behind it, developing menu items and implementing them to the menus, but we're not saying, here, chef, here. I mean, we are in some cases like, here, chef, like, we're not going around our CDC. Like we're sitting down with everybody. We're implementing a dish, but then I love to go and do the fun part, right? You know what I mean? To do the part that we all love to do is actually cook. And that's what I do when I'm in the restaurants, and that's what I love to do. I mean, running services and, making sure things are, but that's, we have people for that now. Cause now I've gone from being an individual chef of one restaurant to now we have multiples, and so we have those people in place that do the daily tasks that keep things moving and very important. But, I think what I've finally been able to now do in my career is actually go back to what I love to do the most, which not a lot of people get to do.
But how long
and
did that take, right? Because there's that instant thing. You want that job, that
30 years,
yeah,
30 years, you know what I mean?
you want that job. You want to be the boss. And then you get to be the boss and you're like, what do you mean I have to go to this meeting and then this paperwork and then what? And then HR
Yeah.
and then I'm like, do I get to cook? No, you're not cooking anymore.
Yeah.
You're, it's like you become what you despise the most at the same
Yeah.
time that you want to be, which is the person that never cooks.
Yeah. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. I mean, there's still plenty of that in our lives. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
it's
there's
always.
plenty of that in our lives. But, but the thing is, like, again, when we walk into our restaurants, into our kitchens, I mean,
That's awesome.
the machine is in place, right? There's the people that are there to do the daily are there. So we're able to keep the creative flow moving and also inspire the younger cooks, right? I don't know if they care if I'm cooking next to them or not, but I know one thing, that if my mentor, my chefs I was working for back in the day were coming on the line and like hanging out with me, that would have been like an incredible experience, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that that's the feeling that some of them get, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, and not just because it's about that, but because I want them to know that we care about showing them, how we intended the dish to be executed, that they can really take ownership, see it the same way that we do, because as I mean, you play a dish for the first time with a cook and you execute something technique wise and, you do it perfectly, right? In your mind, how you envision the dish. And it takes repetition to feed that to someone else, right? You can't just expect them to do it right off the bat, right? And also critique to that. You know what I mean? It's our responsibility as cooks and chefs to practice alongside with them and make sure that they truly understand the vision for the dish or the execution of the technique or how to properly roast a piece of fish in a pan. You know what I mean? Like that's all really important. And I feel like sometimes that's overlooked. And that's why
sometimes
I like to get in there and do that.
sometimes it just gets lost in translation, right?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Or maybe that cook would have, because they're working that station every single day, they might bring something to the table to make it more efficient.
For sure. And that happens all the time.
And
right?
that's amazing. I love that. When I'm like, do it like this. And like, can I show you something? Yeah, sure. Go for it. And they show you and they like, it saves me this much time. I'm like, does it taste the same?
Right. Yeah. As much as I want to say I'm a damn good line cook, and like we jokingly say that all the time. I can take anyone's station on. I'm also approaching 50, so like that's kind of become a lie. Like that's still in my head, right? That I could still operate like that. But I do learn so much, like from younger cooks, especially ones that have gone and worked, because kitchens evolve all the time, right? And and there's chefs that are out there bringing new ideas to how things are set up and executed, whatever whatever it is. But and that's what I mean. I said earlier on in the conversation that I'm a student of what we do. I mean, constantly, and I think that's smart if you maintain that. You're never gonna stop learning in what we do. I mean, food is endless opportunities to continue to learn about food. I will never scratch the surface of what's available to us. And that's what I love about what we do, because it's never boring. That's for sure.
For sure. So you're in DC, you're now running Charlie Palmer's Steak. What was the step? What was that step for them? I mean, you're there for 3 years. That's a big commitment.
Yeah. I mean, I was there for 5, actually.
5.
Yeah. I was there from 2003 till 2008. And that's when I left to open. But, that 5 years was, opening the doors, understanding, like I learned so much about like what it meant to have meeting with people about construction, and like, as I learned the like nuts and bolts of actually building a restaurant. Like I was involved in that. It's like the pots and pans and like, part of the plates and all, so like all the fun things, right? And then came the hard work and the training and the opening and the volume of business that we did there. I mean, that restaurant even back then, we're doing hundreds of covers per day. We're the dining room for the Congress. Like I did, several inaugurations there. I did Bush and Obama. Like, because I was there till 2008. Like, it was incredible to see like all the things that were that close to politics, and seeing the just what DC, like watching the world just change. Like in that dining room was also kind of wild.
Sure.
I watched Barack become a senator and move through the ranks, and was in a dining room on a regular basis. Like it was just like front seat to kind of the world changing, and it was pretty incredible. That all aside, though, what sucked is that when there was a vote across the street, like when Congress has a vote, by the way, sometimes they're out to dinner, and then the vote is called. Back then it was BlackBerry, right? All the BlackBerries would go off in the room, and then everybody would get up and be like, hold fire on every single table in the restaurant. And they all went across the street.
Oh my
Imagine
God.
that nightmare of a restaurant. And then they would go across the street and they would vote, and then they'd turn around and come back. It'd be like, all right, fire table 54, 62. Like it was wild, man. It was crazy.
And it must be insane. You're like,
Yeah,
all right,
that
everybody,
happened.
get ready because it's coming quick.
Yeah. So that would happen. Sometimes, that would be like when they have the all-nighters. And when I learned a lot about the little light that's on top of the Capitol, right? That, is meant to say that they're in session. And for those who know or pay attention to that, when that dome light is on, that means that they're in session. And so that was what we, during season, that's what we would live and die by, is we would know what our business levels would be like based on the longer nights that we would have. So in, that restaurant, it was the first time I'd ever done that type of volume too. Like it was an incredibly busy restaurant. We had lots of private events, which was, we had private dining rooms, I think 4 of them throughout the space, and they were constantly full with political groups that, were entertaining people, of course. And so like, it was just learning that side of the business and being able to manage all of that, and doing it from perspective of being the chef and also managing the management team as the overall GM of the property was incredible. Tender young age and early 30s, right? You know what I mean? There's a lot going on. And it then though, I remember when my wife tells me this story, Charlie was down and he was sitting at the bar. Sometimes like he would come down, not just sitting, but like we would sometimes at the end of the service, the end of the night, we would get together, share a glass of wine, maybe have a bite to eat, and just kind of recap, the visit or the weekend or whatever it was. And so my wife came down and she was there with us, and I left and went, and I was walking around the corner, and I put all the bar stools and made them all lined up and picked up napkins, and like we're following, because there's like a big group had just left. And I don't know if it was that or just the fact that he kind of knew. He looked over to Jennifer and said, I know he's not going to be here long, and I know he's going to be opening up his own space. And I'd never talked to him about it. Like he said something to those lines, and it wasn't 6 months later or 8 months later, I started working on, it wasn't because of that. It wasn't because of that. I already had kind of plans in place to move back to my hometown and open a restaurant. And so I left in 2008. I opened Volt, which is the first restaurant I'd ever opened by myself.
And what was that? I mean, and you'd been with Charlie, and he understands, because for him, he knows that people are going to move on after a certain point. But I mean, you gave him a ton.
Yeah. I mean, I gave him a lot of time. It was almost a decade, and I still we're in touch all the time. Like I do events with him all the time. Like he's a mentor, a friend, I feel like part of the family in a lot of ways. Like we're like, that relationship will always continue. And I'm proud of the time that I was there and the things that I accomplished. Could I have done more? Did I learn a lot? For sure. But did I take everything that I learned working for him and everything that he gave me, as not only just a cook and a chef, but also as someone who is going to operate and open and maintain a restaurant? Those are valuable lessons that not a lot of people get. I mean, sometimes people have incredible ideas, incredible palates, and incredible cooks, but if you don't have any inkling of how to operate a business, you might not make it, right? So those tools I was at least able to extract and take and use them, the best I could. I mean, if I closed restaurants, yes. You know what I mean? I've closed countless restaurants. I mean,
and so is Charlie. Charlie's closed restaurants too.
It's a volatile business. You know what I mean? It's a tough one. Back in that, back in the day though, like when I look back at those menu prices back in New York in '99, I was like, I remember the pre-fee being like, 3 courses for like $85. And I'm like, or maybe it was 68 or 9 or even, but like, when was the last time you've gone out and gotten 3 courses for, I mean, you could pretty much do it right now for $85, right? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Well, what's the food? Prices are not going up enough.
Yeah. Rent, Like I got paid when I started there as an intern, I got paid $5.75 an hour coming out of CIA. I was living in New York City. $5.75 an hour. This is back in
Crazy.
1997, right? I was like, when I saw my internship paper, it said 575, and I was like, is that per week? Sweet. Like I thought I was getting a salary. Like I thought it was like straight. I was like, I don't care how many hours I work. I'll take $500 a week. That would be amazing. I'm at 600. You're like, no, that's per hour. I was like, oh, oh, where am I going to
It's
live?
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, you think about that and
That's
the
why I live with
cost.
12 people in a small apartment, like a 2-bedroom apartment. It was crazy,
Do you
man.
sleep in the bathtub? I used to stage in New York and sleep in a bathtub for crying out loud to get it and
Right.
get woken up for people to take a shower. Man. So you think about that, right? Like that, those choices that you made to be where you are, and now you're opening your own restaurant. What was that transition like for, I mean, you had opened for somebody else, but now, yes, it was your responsibility, but you had somebody else's name that you were worried about, and it was somebody
Right.
else's money.
Yeah.
Now it's you that's responsible for the investments that are being made in you.
Yes.
What did that feel like? And that transition from being responsible for somebody else's name, you built your name under that name and with that name, and now you're fiscally responsible. That's a huge transition.
No, it's a major transition, and it's not one that I took lightly, and also one that I was, even more scared when I moved back to DC to open up for Charlie. I mean, I had to go into it feeling confident and like what I was trying to accomplish because I was also trying to go in. It wasn't like I was going into New York, LA, San Fran, Chicago, and opening up a like-minded restaurant that you could find like in another block. I was coming back to my hometown and trying to do something very progressive for Frederick, Maryland, which is where it is. And so it was a huge gamble in a lot of ways. Like I'm not trying to say that, hey, it's easy to go in and open like in a fine dining restaurant in a major city because it's not. I mean, every restaurant opening is insanely hard to do. You have to be damn crazy to even try to accomplish it. And you're right. There's a huge fiscal responsibility on your shoulders to do so. I mean, it's the one statistic that sticks out there the most. If you're starting a business, everybody always thinks, oh, restaurants close in a year, right? Like it's true, it's true. We've seen it. And so, yeah, I was scared out of my mind. I worked in the same amount of time and effort and hours like, to get it done. You know, my first child was born in 2007, so I'm not, I mean, I spent time, but like, could I have spent more time for sure? You know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
regrets there, right? Because you're having to spend so much time at the restaurant because we opened this in August 2008. So like my son was, 13 months old when I opened up the doors. So it was, yeah, it was tough, and, I'll tell you, because I don't know if anybody remembers those dates, but 2008, we opened in August and then September hit. That was the huge economic downturn in 2008. It started in September. So here I am opening a fine dining restaurant, a finer dining restaurant in a suburb, right? I mean, yes, of DC and Baltimore. I mean, we're 45 minutes away respectively from each one. So I mean, could we get weekend business for sure? But that was super tough. You know what I mean? Because all of a sudden we went from, a lot of fanfare and like, a lot of people like excited about doing it to like, we're going to shut the wallet a little bit and we're not going to come out and maybe spend money at this level. So it was really hard getting through that first year. Like we really were like, we're going to be statistic. You know what I mean? We're going to be one of those restaurants that only stay open for a year. And it was going to happen, but I'll tell you somehow we survived that. Right. And got through it. And it took a lot of effort, right? A lot of managing numbers and trying to be, putting out a good product, and making sure that we're cooking at the highest level we could, but also there was no room for waste or error. Like we didn't have it. And after that second year, though, it really started to take off. But I also was blessed with the opportunity of also going on TV that next year too. So that helped. I mean, I can't ignore that. When I went on Top Chef in 2009 and then it aired in 2010, I mean, we saw a huge influx in business, and it was amazing. It definitely helped redirect the restaurant, but we did survive on our own though during the dark period, like, cause that was before it came out, so we did get through that year. Yeah. So I'm glad we did, because had we not, then we wouldn't have been able to have the opportunities that we had after that. And after that show came out.
What was that like, walking away from the restaurant to go shoot TV, knowing that it's going to be good for your business?
It had been open for 7 months. I worked my entire life to do this. It had been open for 7 months, and I was going to leave for 6 weeks.
And you were going to leave for 6 weeks and entrust it with your team.
Yeah. Fortunately, Graham Ritchie was working for me as my sous chef at the time at Volt, and he had worked with me at Charlie Palmer Steak. He started as an intern. He came back, worked as a cook throughout all the stations, became a sous chef for me. Like, he was somebody I knew that, like, he cared as much as I did about our success. I knew I could rest this on his shoulders. But again, I look back, like the conversation you and I just had about like what it was. I wonder what it was like for him. And honestly, it's been a long time since we've ever discussed that time period in our career, because we're good friends and we don't work together, with each other, but we're good family friends. And so we stay in touch, but I need to ask him that question. Like, what was that like for you? Because I am curious. Did he feel the same way I did when I took over for like Charlie to open a restaurant? I mean, we'd been open for 7 months and it was really hard during that time. And there's no calling home. There's no like, hey, I just had to like put it on the table. We all knew what we were doing. Like, partners, everybody knew what was going to happen. But like, I didn't know if I was coming back to a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, I had no idea.
And to be clear, so everybody understands, when you go to do Top Chef, your phone is taken away. There is no outside communication. There's no music. There's no magazines. There's no TV. There's no news.
Newspaper.
There's
you
nothing.
Don't even know.
You don't know what's going on in
is.
the world. So to be taken away. And if I'm correct, Graham got to come at one point, right? Didn't they pull him from the restaurant to help you at the finale?
He did Masters.
Okay.
So this is OG. This is season 6 Vegas. This is like way back in the day, right?
Okay.
So, we were gone. I think during that time, filming was like May to June something, and then we went back in October to film finale in Napa. So
okay.
So that was like the time, and then it aired in December. Like they did a short turnaround for the start of the season that year. And so at least I got to go back in between, right? And kind of like get everything reacclimated, test new dishes, get ready for the right to try to win, right? And then but yeah, I was so obviously excited to get back and find out that my doors are still open. You know what I mean? I think I called my wife first and told her I was going to finale. Then I called the restaurant. I would say that would be the proper way of doing it. But
yeah, I
was nervous and scared whether or not we were even going to still be there. So, but he did an incredible job. Team did, best they could with what they had. And, we kept the doors open. And then we, went into that next, year once everything kind of aired. And it was immediate, like being in a small town and, we're on the paper every, for that show being on. And, it definitely created a lot of energy and buzz. And I feel like that people were completely supported, gave the community something to root for, which was all exciting, And so there's like it finally made me feel more connected to the community, because I did feel like when we first opened that there's a bit of like this air of like, who do you like, even though I was from here, it was like, who do you think you are opening this big fancy restaurant? You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of that. Like I felt like there's a little bit of that, with the community and resistance, but not like entirely. It's just something they'd never seen before. And, what do you mean when I ordered a steak, I don't get a house salad that comes with it first? You know what I mean? What do you mean I'll have a side of baked potato immediately with that? Like you're going to tell me what I'm going to have? Like we changed dining here, you know what I mean, in this town. And I felt like it was important that we did. And there are a lot of restaurants also started to follow suit, like things like we kind of helped to level up like what we're doing in this community. But at first it wasn't well received. And
there's always resistance to change, right?
Always. Yeah.
Always.
Again, like is it easier to open up that style of restaurant into a city that has 12 of them sitting around the block? Yeah. It's going to be super competitive, but everybody understands it. You know what I mean? And so what we did is we brought something that was seemingly new, that you would only get if you went to the bigger city, if you only went down to DC, if you only went down to Baltimore, like then you would have those experiences, right? We brought it to their backyard. And I'm not saying like everybody didn't get it, but I mean, I'm just telling you, there was a lot of questions when people kind of came in, right? And and now it's all like, I mean, now you could open, relatively any style of restaurant in Frederick right now and be immensely successful, right? And I felt like we kind of helped pave the way from a culinary perspective and help just push the bar up a little bit. But what comes with that is that I felt like that show more than anything helped rally people behind what we're trying to accomplish. Um, really, I thought gave a lot of support towards the restaurant because they had something to root for, which I thought was just like, I was incredibly proud of, and also like taken back by the whole scenario, the whole situation, right? It was really, really good. And we went all the way to the finale. And like with the biggest party that was thrown in downtown Frederick in a long time was we tented the courtyard and like everybody was there. Like I already knew the outcome, right? But it was like when they saw this party, when they walked in, they're like, "Fuck, he won." You know what I mean? Like
It's local boy does good. It's local boy does
and
good.
and then it got down to Michael and I, down to the two of us, and they announced his name, and everybody just like looked, and I just started clapping, and then everybody clapped. Like nobody knew how to react. You know what I mean? Because they thought for sure like there's a huge blowout, but I couldn't tell anybody what was happening. They all like. The city supported it. Like everybody came, like everybody was a part of like throwing this party, this watch
That's
party.
awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible. But we did win. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, it was, Michael and I, right? And everybody knows that story. But, it was cool, that it came down to be the two of us. And here we are now. Like, I mean, a lot of things have happened in between. But, I'm sitting in a restaurant now. It's in a hotel, by the way, which is how Michael and I got our start, in a hotel restaurant in Frederick. And now we're part of opening one that hasn't been in downtown in 50 years. There hasn't been a hotel in Frederick, Maryland in 50 years.
That's awesome.
And so now we're part of this new project and kind of bringing it full circle, kind of our career, and bringing something that we're doing for the first time together in our hometown, right? Because we opened this new restaurant called White Oak Tavern back in December. So
as a chef, I'm always asked the same question. What's your secret to making a restaurant quality dish at home? It's not just the ingredients, it's how you bring them to life, and it starts with the right tools. Heston's ProBond professional clad cookware collection will give you control, consistency, and confidence. It's cookware that makes you want to cook more. Check it out at HestonCulinary.com and use my promo code CookWithChris for 10% off your first order.
It's interesting, you talk about going away, going to the big city, learning, and then bringing back what you've learned. I talked with somebody the other day, and you hear these stories now about major cities like LA, San Francisco, New York, Boston. A lot of those cities are losing or are struggling for culinary teams, right?
yeah,
What happened for so long was all of us left our prospective places that we lived that didn't have these type of restaurants, flocked to those cities, New Orleans, Chicago, Manhattan, San Francisco, Los Angeles. And then what happens? Everybody went home and opened restaurants. Now you have high quality restaurants and higher end restaurants and different styles of unique cuisine all over the US. And all of those cooks that used to gravitate from those major places throughout the rest of the country that used to go to the coasts, whether it be going to Chicago, Boston, LA, SF, New York, DC, all those folks that were going there don't need to leave their hometowns anymore.
Right.
So now what used to be called the flyover states that didn't have so many great restaurants are loaded with brilliant talent. And I think that really is showing how much food has changed the landscape of US.
For sure. You in the last 10 or 15 years, maybe even a little bit longer than that, that sort of that trend has been happening, right? Where you're right, people are going and they're cutting their teeth somewhere in some, major city and bringing those experiences back, or traveling overseas and bringing that back to, the town, or moving from an entirely different country and bringing an incredible restaurant here. Right. And so, we're fortunate to be in a country that does that, right, and allows that and promotes that and encourages that, but also there's been so many transitions, like where there's people moving into cities and out of cities, and like we've seen that transition happening like all over the country, and so the surrounding kind of like suburbs, right, of that still want that experience that you would get in the city, but they're teleworking from a community that's an hour away, they don't need to go into the city anymore, right? So I mean,
Exactly.
life has changed, right? So people who might not be in downtown or an hour or so outside of it might not want to go back on a Saturday night or a Friday or, fight traffic. They want something good in their backyard. And, I think restaurants and chefs and people that are, in those communities that grew up there, they're recognizing that and they're opening up the doors. Right. And so why not? Yeah. I mean, but also what it does is in some sense, it does give the culinary teams and the service teams, it's expensive to live anywhere these days, right? I mean, I think we're all seeing that, but is it slightly less, right? To live, in Frederick than it is in Baltimore or DC? Yes. Is it expensive in this area? For sure. You know what I mean? It just really is. We're in the East Coast and we're in Maryland. No neighborhood that's cheap around here, but it at least, gives them opportunity to, hey, maybe they want to be closer to like the mountains and like, the rivers and like going fishing and hiking and stuff like that. So we do have that like in this area, right? So there's a lot of those communities too that are becoming attractive. And, I'm trying to, I mean, there's great food popping up all over the country right now in states that, like you said, that you normally, might not go into. And I'm actually trying to do more of that. Just like travel, as I travel, I tend to learn more about, other communities. I do my own because I'm here, I'm working. And I never get to go out in my backyard, right? And I finally got to go to a restaurant in a town called Bethesda just the other day, and I get to see a good, a colleague, Mike Freeman just opened a restaurant, Cosentino. So I got to go down there, and I had a great meal for my son's birthday. I was like, finally, I get to go out, and so
he's
great. The family. He's great.
Mike's great, and I'm actually going to do an offal dinner at that restaurant with him.
Cosentino?
Yep.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm coming then.
So Tatiana ran into him about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, no shit.
What a lot of people don't. Mike came and did the Offal Good internship with me twice when
really?
In Kanto. Yeah, he came.
No shit. That's awesome.
He applied for it the first year and then got in, which is crazy to think that I even did that. And then he asked to come back the next year. So I ended up having more, and it was just like such a talent, such a great guy, great head on his shoulders.
Food there was incredible. So
he's just so great. But he just asked if I would come and do it. So actually I'm supposed to talk to him like today or tomorrow. I can't remember.
Okay. Well, I'll be tracking that one.
I'll let you know. That's awesome. So cool. He's so talented. Such a good guy.
Good.
You're open. It's busy. What's next? You've got Volt, it's rolling. And what are those next steps? Like what was that turning point to grow again?
Yeah. I mean, people I was working with at the time, we started, getting some opportunities to open up other concepts. I opened up a diner concept called Family Meal that quickly then expanded to a couple cities, which they all, ended up closing. Branched out, opened an Italian concept called Agio in Baltimore. Opened up a restaurant called Range in DC. Like these are all restaurants now that don't exist. I mean, some of them fell victim to the pandemic. Some of them, were just pioneering real estate that shouldn't have been, like going into neighborhoods that weren't quite ready to support it yet because you're early in. And that's sometimes attractive, right? In your early deals because brokers and so forth, they're like, oh, we can get you a lot of TI money. We can, cut you a good deal because you're first in. You know what I mean? But that means you're waiting for the neighborhood to grow, and not always the best play unless you're going to be able to survive the long haul. So I now would look for denser populations and I'll pay the higher rent. You know what I mean? So I've learned my lesson there. And so that was kind of a growing period for about 8 years, and then maybe a little bit longer, and then pandemic happened, and then there was just a shift. And so honestly, after that, my brother and I, we partnered together now. And so a lot of those concepts we no longer have. I mean, honestly, my first restaurant that I've ever opened is now, closed. I moved, I did 16 years or 17 years where Volt was. Now moved 2 blocks over. I have White Oak Tavern with Michael. We have Volcania, which is an Italian-American concept that we've opened in Mammoth Mountain at the base of the village there. And we have Voltaggio Brothers Steakhouse, which is the first thing. So during that time, I was talking about, and this is now 8 years old now. We've had this concept there in National Harbor, and our partners are at the MGM. that was the first restaurant that Michael and I opened together. So we opened that back in 2016, and it's been there ever since. Um, that was a proud moment too. That was the first time we actually did kind of come home to Maryland, right? I mean, now we're really in our hometown. We're in Frederick, like where we went to high school. But our first restaurant together was in Maryland, and still is operating and doing an amazing job there. And we're very proud of that, So now it's like, we've kind of reset, ourselves and our business model and like how we're working together now. And now we're taking it slow, trying to not grow fast and, learn from experiences that we've had. Right. And, be strategic in what our next moves are. We still get to dabble a little bit in television here and there. I just did 24 and just wrapped that up. That's been fun. Michael's got a lot of projects he gets to do with Food Network and so forth. But then we also, from a restaurant perspective, we still cook. You know what I mean? We're still in our restaurants, on a very much regular basis. And, we plan to do more. There isn't like finite plans or anything that's out there right now, like, that we can talk to, but we're not stopping. You know what I mean? Like it's the cool thing is that there's still so much still to give and still so much to share, in what we do and we're still very passionate about what we do in hospitality. That even though I'm 30 years into it and collectively 60, put him and I together, what I mean? It's a lot of time there. We want to continue to do more. So I'm excited for what's to come, which is great.
How was 24? Did you have fun?
It was the hardest one I've ever done. Because, cooking and standing and being there 24 hours straight. And that's just the clock. That's just the competition part. Then there's interviews that lasted for 2.5 hours, right? So it was like a 29-hour day. You know what I mean? It was long day. It was crazy. And, I did it because like last season I went and I judged and Michael and I went in halfway through and at that moment I was like, I could still hang with these kids. I could do this, That was more like, it's kind of like I'm trying to prove myself. I can still like an idiot work 24 hours straight. Like, why would I want to do that? But I was like, you know what, let's give it a shot. And, they asked me to do it. I said, yeah, I would. And, I'm glad I did. I had a lot of fun. I love competing. The cool thing is that honestly, I love doing the food competitions because in the crazy world that we're in right now, it's like you just get to kind of throw all that away and just get focused on one dish, right? Or two dishes. Like whatever you're doing, you're just cooking. You know what I mean? There isn't a noise of this or that going on. Like for just a moment, I just get to do what I love, And yeah, it's under the clock and under the gun. It's not always what you want to cook. If somebody says, oh, you got to use mashed potatoes and a spiralizer, like, I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean? But like, it's still fun. Right. But my point is I got to do an entire season in one day. You know what I mean? So it's like, why not? You know what I mean? Like,
it's a good point.
Not? Yeah. Why not? I get to go. My wife, she was like, her favorite part of the story about 24 is that, when it was all over, she gets to tell all of her friends that, yeah, Bryan, he woke up on a Thursday and was like, yeah, I got to go to LA. I got to film TV show. I'll be back on like Saturday. And I was like, and she was like, I didn't even know he was going. Like, and like, she didn't even know what I was doing. Like, because it was one day and I was like, I just got a business trip. I'm just going away for one day. I'll be back. I went and I filmed an entire season of TV, like in a day, 8 episodes or whatever it was. It's kind of wild. Like it feels like you were there for a week. Like I'll never forget, like it was in, the IKEA in Burbank, whatever. So
I know exactly where you are. Yeah.
One of those rooms. Right. And so the room that we just kind of left like our phones and like our bags and the stuff we kind of just brought in for the day, we just like left in a room. Like it's like in a green room kind of deal. And all 24 people just left their shit there. And we just went in and started competing. Then to come back like 5 hours later and go get your stuff, it looked like it was there for an entire damn week. You know what I mean? Like it felt like it was there, like you were there for a week in that moment. For some strange reason to me, I was like, what just happened? You know what I mean? But it was one day and it felt like I was there for an eternity. And I grabbed my stuff and I was like, wow, the water in my Yeti is still cold. Like this was weird. Like my coffee could have been still hot. Who knows? Like it was like,
that's
what it's like.
I think
it was insanity. And there was just so much captured in that 24 hours of time. I mean, it's a brilliant concept, right? For those who are dumb enough to sign up and do it. But I encourage people to go do it because it's an experience for sure. Like, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't do it again because I've done it once and I went far enough. But it was just very different than anything I'd ever done. And the biggest thing that look, I know I'm always runner up. It seems like in these things, I'm sure you know the results, right? And John Sawyer running, he did an incredible job, amazing cook. I got to know him over that one, and that's what happens. Like people that you're not normally connected with in this industry, like you know them from afar, and you get to get in there and cook with somebody, and get to know the personality and become friends, and just really that's what I love about it too, because I get to meet new people. And I've got a lot of friends that came out of that show now, right? So that's rewarding. But then also when I got down to the end, and I don't know if you watched it or not or saw the blurb, but I raised money, as you know, for No Kid Hungry, and I still work with them. I didn't get to go to Bend this year. I had my flights booked, and I was going to ride it. And Debbie's mad I didn't go, and I'm upset about it too. So we're going to organize something in DC, by the way, if she sees this. And we're committed to it. 26. We're gonna do it out of Frederick and go down to DC. So we're working on something. But point is that at the end, because I was going to donate some of the proceeds if I won, I was going to give in Bottle Rock. And so I told my family, I was like, I want to watch the finale together. Like we all knew what happened. Like we're going to watch it on Monday when I fly. When mom, because I was with Jennifer was with me. We were flying home, and that Monday we watched it. And we went all the way to the end. And this little thing comes up and says, in honor of Bryan Voltaggio, we're donating 75,000 meals to No Kid Hungry. So I got like a kind of like a runner up like donation to No Kid Hungry, which I was completely floored and shocked. Like I had no idea they're going to do that. I immediately started texting people involved there. And they're like, haha, we didn't tell you. I was like,
That's
you guys
awesome.
got me. I was like, you guys got me. Like
That's cool.
that was like, I was so proud, like, that they thought that, I cared that much about that charity and it meant that much to me. And like, I got that close, again, runner up, that they felt compelled to do that. And so that was really rewarding, for them to do that. And so, but I didn't win, but it's okay. I felt like I did when that happened. Like, so, which was just, it was touching,
That's awesome.
They recognized that.
I mean, you've always given back. You've always worked hard to make sure the people that don't have. So that's.
Yeah. I mean, I try as much as I can. I mean, you're given like this little bit of like opportunity to do what you can to get back. And that's just, one that, I mean, as we all know, it's like cooks and chefs, like how do you even think that this is possible in our country, right? The kids are hungry and it just seems like it's getting worse and worse, not better and better, right? So I still continue to try to fight that fight and try to stay organized with them. We get asked to do a lot because food is powerful in a lot of ways. I mean, it can go out there and raise a lot of money and do a lot of things, right? And so I feel like when you're given the opportunity to do so, I feel like you should. And that's why I stay connected with them. Because I didn't want to spread myself out thin. We get asked to do a lot of stuff, and not that I don't care about a lot of initiatives that are out there in the world. I just feel like that if I can put efforts towards one, I can actually move the needle someday. I've been fortunate to raise near $1 million for him. So I mean that feeds a lot of kids. And that's just something I want to stay committed with.
That's awesome.
But I was told when I first met though, Debbie and Billy, we're going to stop this in 2015, but it doesn't seem to be getting anywhere anytime soon. Like,
it's getting worse.
Yeah.
Getting worse.
Food prices, like we can go on hours about that side of it, I mean, here in my backyard, I mean, just tell you about what got stripped out of these bills that just happened. I have a grower farmer that we work with, Moon Valley Farm in Woodsboro, Maryland. And, she is a part of the, US Ag program that gave fresh produce to schools. Right. And that just got stripped. Like the whole thing. Like there's so many farmers right now that have crops in the ground that didn't even know that was going to happen to them. And now they're looking for other outlets, right? And doing, but those are, I mean, that's not just straight up subsidy. These are programs in place that, I mean, there's costs involved of buying the product from the farmer and getting it over to the schools, but it's an important first step into trying to get that good, good fresh produce that's local in our backyards and to the schools that are in the communities that they're serving, right? And to have that ripped away, that stuff is that's the stuff we're starting to see, that's the stuff we got to continue to fight.
That is very true. It's there's a lot of moving pieces right now that
Yeah.
are coming into fruition that will really shock some folks when they start to see the price tags on produce and meats, and things coming to the grocery store are going to change.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
definitely gonna hit home, and I think we have to be really mindful of that as culinarians and feeding our guests. And prices are already high, and
hmm
how do you pass that on to your guest when it's going to become
We've
unattainable
been
at some
trying
point?
to absorb it, like we opened this concept here. I mean, I used to say when I first opened my restaurant, I always wanted people to look at the check and say, okay, I had a great experience tonight. If it had the complete check, right? Like what we intended the restaurant to provide, right? You know, full experience. Never want anybody to look at it and be like, next time, like, maybe I won't get, that cocktail to start, or maybe I won't get that glass of wine, or maybe I won't get that dessert, right? And we absorb that. I'm not trying to say I'm discounting by any means, but like, I'm trying to be as price conscious as we can, in this new concept that we have now, right? Very, especially like our cocktail prices start at 14. It's like unheard of in a major city, right? And I'm doing it intentionally because part of it is, okay, well, if you do want to have a second one, it's 28, right? We're keeping it under 30, right? Or if you want to, finish with a glass of wine and do another one, it still kind of keeps you within a comfortable price point. And then that way you're not, looking at the menu and making compromises there. So it's tough because, our margins are razor thin, or even like, not even on the winning side now because of it. But I still want to provide an experience. And so walking that line is ever so tight. It's never been this tight, in our industry. I've never seen it. Again, I go back and jokingly say, like, what was it like to operate in New York back in the early 90s? They're crushing it, man. Like they were killing it.
I mean, you think about it, it went
Yeah.
from being a profitable business to an employment agency,
Yes.
and we want to give back. We want to make people feel comfortable. That's what the
Yes.
hospitality industry is about. But again, it is a business in the end, and
I know.
it has to be fiscally viable, or everybody loses. Not only do your partners and investors, but also the community loses when the restaurants close, because that employs the community.
Right. For
And
sure.
that's the bigger picture. And I think that's a really hard thing. That's a very tough burden to carry on your shoulders. And that always weighed on me. If this goes tits up, how many families am I supporting with the restaurant? Like, what is this going to do to the community at large? And that really weighed on me for a long
Yeah.
time.
No, it's a huge burden to undertake. You know what I mean? And the worst. I mean, I've had that conversation. I've brought a team together and say, hey, we're closing. It's tough. We never take that lightly. It's so unfortunate. I always made sure everybody's taken care of the best we could too. And but it's just comes up. I mean, I had plenty of places I never took that from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was never me first. It was always them first. And that was always the case, right? And so, I mean, but still, no matter what, there's that burden that you live with, right? No, and I mean, I couldn't even imagine being a part of it. Like you hear the corporations are like, "Oh, we're going to slash 20,000 jobs." Like, oh my god, I could never be. I don't want to be a CEO of anything like that, man.
No way.
No,
Not
no way.
interested.
No,
Not interested.
not. I am not. I'm not, the hospitality side of what we do and that nature that we have. I could never, like, yes, we have to lead, the small businesses that we have, but like, I could never work on that scale. No way. No.
What's your thought on social media versus real life in the restaurant industry? Because I feel like it's getting pretty askew.
Yeah. We're actually just having a conversation about this. When I grew up as a chef, it was like Food Arts Magazine, New York Times, like that's how you got your information, or Culinary, or like, there was never pictures or anything really shared other than what you saw in those magazines, or maybe little blips on TV here and there, if there was anything, right?
Menus from people that traveled,
Yeah.
right? And then you get somebody to photocopy it for you.
Or somebody actually had a disposable camera and took pictures of something, right? That actually rare, like it happened, but it was really rare. And everybody would get around like and look at it and be like, oh, what's going on? Or the handwritten drawings of the specials, like of the restaurant.
Yep.
We had those. And so that's how we shared information. And then television became a thing, right? And then the phone became the thing, right?
Yep.
And so there's 3 levels of like how we consumed our food media. Like it was printed at one point in whatever fashion you're looking at. then it was kind of shared in television. There's Emerald this, that, you know what I mean? Like in the Food Network, like all that stuff started happening in Celebrity Chef and yada, yada, right? But then now it's like, I don't know, man. Like,
It's a lot.
yeah, it's a lot, you know what I mean? And now we're leaning into like, is it literally real or not? Now we got AI, you know what I mean? So it's like everything that's ever been done in catalog that's been put online, that's a recipe or so forth, or a book, I mean, will now be essentially, you can grab it and use it. It's fine. So it opens up a new door for exploring food, like in a much faster way. So like, I think it's good and bad. I think where it's good is that somebody's really trying to pursue this and trying to hone the craft, and like they can grab a lot of information in real time, right? And progress their, ideas, thoughts, or whatever they're trying to create in the kitchen, um, a little bit more in real time and kind of keep up with the world, right? So there's a slight benefit to that, I guess. So that part of like having information available, I kind of like, enjoy. I just don't know how I feel about, and I don't even know how to explain this, but like where it's going to, I don't know. I mean, you can't eat anything on Instagram. Like, you know what I
No.
mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know where I'm going with my thought on this, because like it's just it's happening so fast and it's so confusing, right? And yeah, there's a lot to learn on there, and a lot of people share information, and in the home cooks, but like, and I don't want to get in the whole conversation of like what's a chef, you know what I mean? Because like people are doing that now, right? And I get it. If you're at home and you have a little cooking studio and you want to call yourself a chef, I don't care. Like, that's them. That's fine. I still believe, and I grew up in like, the kitchens and the camaraderie and the things we've talked about at the start of the call, and like why I wanted to get into this career, and like what was exciting about that, and like being a part of that team and delivering experience. Like, I want to go into the restaurant and I want to cook for people, right? Like, I want to go out and, change somebody's day. I want somebody coming in having a shitty day, and I'd be like, damn, they take a bite and they're like, oh shit, like I'm kind of reset. Like things are all good now. Or somebody's having like, an incredible celebration, and they're, a milestone anniversary, a birthday, whatever it is, you know what I mean? They beat something, you know what I mean? Like, like that's the stuff that I want to be a part of,
Yeah.
And if I can have a setting for them to come in and I can be a part of that, that's what I love to do, and I'm, that's what restaurants are about. Like, I mean, that's what that sort of community of that spirit is like all about. Like, that's what I love, and that's why I go to work every day. Yeah, I can post things on Instagram and be like, hey, look at this cool dish or whatever. Like, it's good for like, building curiosity, and then getting people curious enough to come in and be like, hey, that is where I'm going to celebrate that thing. But then it's up to us when they get here that you live up to that. If you don't live up to what you posted, then it's irrelevant. That's the thing. Like you have to live up to what you put out there. And if you don't, it's irrelevant. Like there's no point in doing it. Like you can't underwhelm somebody when they walk in the door. That's important. And that's something that I respect and we try to maintain.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of over promise and under deliver.
Yeah. And so that part of the whole thing is what I pay attention to the most, because if we share something, I want it to feel authentic. I want it to be authentic when you walk in the door. So that's what's important to me, right now in this ever changing world of like how fast things are evolving. That's where I try to take that one piece. Is like, okay, we'll just stay rooted and grounded in this. This is what we'll do.
What's been your worst mistake?
Worst mistake, man. Let's see. I don't know. I mean, I've pioneered some real estate. I think, trying to go into areas that weren't quite ready to support a restaurant. I mean, that was, one. I take all that aside. Honestly, I've realized where I'm at right now. And look, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think I have a great relationship with my family, my kids, and everything that's going on. But I definitely know now, as I've matured in this, and I'm now approaching 50, and I'm starting to realize that I can buy more time back in my day and my week, and entrust more people. I'm not saying I didn't trust, but there was a time in my 30s and early 40s, like when I was like, really trying to grow something, whatever, and, have restaurants, take time off and have a good work-life balance. Like, I'll be honest with you, like I've wasted hours and days and weeks of my life, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying they're wasted completely. And it's like, but like I could have done more for myself and with my family and with my friends, you know what I mean, over the time, and left, you know, not left the restaurant to run on its own or anything by any means. That's not what I'm trying to get at, but I didn't have to be there at 7 a.m. being first in and last out. Like I was doing that as a chef, you know, and I look back now, I think that's probably like my biggest mistake in any advice I'd give, because you don't need to work 80 hours a week to accomplish it. You don't need to, you know, you need to build good teams. You need to entrust a lot of people that are around you. You need to spend quality time when you're there in a certain period of time, and time manage. I wish I time managed myself more. Now I've been able to take on, like, even, I got a pilot's license. You know what I mean? That took hours. Like, I did that over the last 3 years. I started in 2021. I'm like, I want to do something. Like, I've done all of this for not everyone. I've done all of this basically just ignoring everything else that I've, had going on, and stop doing activities outside. You know what I mean? And I started riding bikes too. You know what I mean? Like, I started doing things to try to learn that there's life outside of the restaurant and the kitchen, including my family, spending a lot more time, at home and with them, and never missing, like, I had a call the other day. I'm like, sorry guys, 8th grade graduation. That was you. That was you. You know what I mean?
It's all good.
I mean, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, literally at the top of this, like, we had to reschedule.
Did I balk?
Not at all, because you understand.
I get it.
And I think that you and I both, very much so now understand that, because I'm sure what I'm saying now, you're reflecting back, probably thinking the same thing.
I do all the time.
You're like, I know. Yeah, I know. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned and regret. And the biggest mistake I made is I didn't commit more time to outside, because I probably would have had better experience in the restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, had I done that, right? And so that's just definitely something you don't learn until you get there. And nobody told you back then that that's the way it should have been, because they didn't.
No.
Not when we grew up in this. Like, it was like, no, you're here. Like, you know what I mean? You're here, and you're here 6 days a week, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's the way it is. And it was so competitive, you know what I mean? And you just kind of like absorbed it and did it, and that just came the way you're trained, and you just went with it. So
you got to break. I mean, we had to break a mold. And I think, honestly, COVID broke the mold for us.
Sure. 100%.
COVID did it. And, as much as it was awful, it opened doors for all of us by letting us see what we took for granted and what we didn't realize we were doing wrong.
100%.
It allowed us to see the forest through the trees. And I think that, to me, is really important. Seeing that now, like, in the moment, it was hard because we didn't know what to do. We thought we were losing everything, and life was, too much uncertainty. But now, looking back, it was a blessing for a lot of people.
And things started to reopen. It was like reopened, like, kind of choreographed, and like there's a certain period of time that people could be in a restaurant. Like, it was like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, okay, we're just kind of like reshaping a new balance. And it was, awkward, and we all were learning, and it was like really tough to navigate, scary and all of those things. But you're right. I point to the same thing where it transitioned for me. 100%. Had that not happened, I might not have changed, I mean,
I can tell you,
I definitely learned from it.
Yeah. I think about it a lot. You answered my next question already. So what's your best meal? Do you have one of those aha moment best meals?
An aha moment. I had one that was like a bucket list, and, it was more just like a rite of passage, sort of like just getting connected to everything I learned when I went to culinary school. And something I just never thought I would do. When I was in 2003, I was in France, and I was going from Paris to Valence, and I went through Lyon, and I got to see Bocuse from TGV. So I went over, and I was cooking with this very luxury cruise line that does rivers, and we're in Lyon. And I flew into Lyon that morning, and I thought we were leaving at 11 o'clock, and we weren't leaving until 6 a.m. the next day, right? Leaving the dock to like go. And I was going to cook on this for like 8 days, right? And so on a whim, I called Bocuse and said, hey, I got 3 people, any chance? And I'm thinking to myself, they're going to be like, yeah, right. And they're like, yeah, right. We got a wait list. Ha ha ha. And they put me on the wait list. Hour and a half later, they called me, and they're like, hey, we got a slot 6:30. You want to come in? I was like, hell yeah. And so I went in, Jerome was there. Like it was incredible. Like I got to go in and go to to one of the, you know, founders of like, like this is one of the people we studied about when we were in culinary school, right? Paul
Yeah.
Bocuse, right? And I finally got to go eat in this restaurant. And yeah, like there was the interesting, dishes that that everybody knows, and like the cheese cart was incredible, and like the experience and the service. But it was also great that only a couple years ago that I got to experience that level of attention of detail and service that's starting to get kind of lost, right? There's very few restaurants that have the ability to commit that level of service, you know what I mean, nowadays,
Yeah.
right? And to sort of like revisit that too. And because I hadn't had that since like well before pre-pandemic. And yeah, it's some of the top restaurants in our country for sure. Like I've been very well taken care of. And I can give you a long list of restaurants I've had extraordinary meals at. But it's just this sort of sense of like, I don't know, those who kind of like started like what a restaurant is and what it means to be, good or bad, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like what we know restaurants to be now kind of started with people like that. And to be able to go and get that experience, just, I mean, I could have pre-planned and flown over and done it, but it was, done in a way that was unexpected for me that day. Like I had no idea, like in an hour and a half later or 2 hours later, I was gonna be sitting in that dining room. So it was a complete surprise that we're able to like pull this off last minute and go. So there's that part of it. So it made it feel very special. Got to tour the cellar and like, like the whole deal. You know what I mean? It was just, I don't know. There's just something about it. Like I'm sure that happens for a lot of people, like here domestically. Like a young cook gets to go walk into the laundry for the first time, or gets to go into, Alinea for the first. You know what I mean? Like what I mean, those like 1%,
Yeah.
those top restaurants, right? That we all kind of like have learned about in their careers and have heard about, right? So for me, like even though I worked at Peak, a 3-star Michelin restaurant in Valence, I mean I worked there during a short period of time, but to be able to go to Bocuse and have that was, yeah, it was a bucket list thing. It was pretty
Nice.
cool.
Is there anything you won't eat?
I won't eat Cheetos.
If you
Anything
could,
with like it's a thing, it's a fact. Everybody knows. Like I got something about the powdery cheese that goes on the outside of those things. Like it's something from childhood. I don't know what
wow.
happened. Like my brother chases me around with them on a regular basis. It's a real deal thing. Like if a bag, they're forbidden in my house, literally forbidden. Like
That's
they are not
amazing.
allowed in my house. Like I don't care if you go to Whole Foods and get the organic, whatever puffed cheese thing. You know what I mean? Nah, those are just Cheetos in disguise. They're not
You
allowed
are
in my
funny.
house.
You are funny.
Yes, 100%.
If you could have dinner with anyone, with us or not, who would it be?
I've never given a lot of thought about this, but I'll tell you that my mother's father, he like there's pictures of me now that like they ask you for like Food Network stuff. They're like, oh, like give some photos of you
Yeah.
young cooking, whatever. It was always with my pa, always cooking with him and like carving the turkey and stuff like that. I wonder if he would be proud. Like he died when he was at a very young age. He was in his 50s. And he was like kind of into food, right? He was a Navy frogman. That was the original SEAL, right? Like he was a Whirlpool salesman, you know what I mean? Like at one point, like he was selling appliances and stuff. And like, I don't know, like all the sort, but I just feel like he would be proud of Michael and I that we became cooks and chefs. You know what I mean? Like because I feel like he had like a passion for food, right? And so there's something about that I always think back that I wonder if it'd be cool to like share a meal, cook a meal for him.
That's awesome.
I think that would be kind of fun because like we didn't get to grow up with him, I mean, I was 6 or 7, I think, when he passed, maybe even a little bit younger. Yeah. So like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I look back at those photos that I constantly share now because like my first cookbook came from, my grandmother and him, you know what I mean? Like that, it was like a little cool little, make a peanut butter jelly sandwich and cut it out like a smiley face kind of deal. You know what I mean? Whatever, but it was cool. You know what I mean? So like the first apron I ever put on, I put on with them. You know what I mean? Like there's something about that. And so I think that would probably be the way I would go.
That's awesome. You mentioned food arts, right? And I know you
Yes.
remember the section that was, what did they know? The
Yes.
dish that flopped. What is your dish that flopped?
Dish that flopped. Oh man, this is unexpected. This one, okay, it's not necessarily a flop. It was a dish I had to argue about. And this is something I did for Top Chef. So it's kind of funny. All right. Cause I never won a quick fire. And that's why I think this is fun. I mean, maybe I won one. I don't know. But we did a fried rice challenge that Padma put out there. And it was like Ali Wong was on and what's the other guy? He's like, they're in that movie together. Yeah. Can't remember that actor's name. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this because he's gonna kill me. Really great guy, funny as shit. And so they did this fried rice challenge, right? And so I made.
You're talking about the Culinary movie where he's in San Francisco and Keanu Reeves is in it.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
I know you're talking about. Yeah.
So we do this challenge, right? And at the end, my dish was delicious. I don't care what anybody said, but I made a congee, right? And I put crispy arare like all over the top. And I argued, I was like, a lot of times you have fried rice and like I got a lot of fried rice like takeout. And like, sometimes I don't like the texture of the tackiness of it, the crispy rice that kind of sticks to your teeth. Like, I got fried rice on the top. So you get in this luscious, like beautiful congee. And it was like really balanced. Like there's enough of like this flavorful congee and there's a lot of the crispy rice on top. And like all these other garnishes and stuff. And Padma was just like, it's not fried rice. I was like, I mean, I know by definition it's not fried rice. Like I just had to sit there and argue, but I was like, I don't care. Hands down, this is the best dish that's in here. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, I know it's delicious. Like, and I didn't even qualify to win. So like, yeah, like I guess that was the one disappointing one because I was so proud of like what I did and like my like, interpretation of like the challenge. And the funny thing is like in these cooking competitions, as like, a lot of times if you don't stick to the criteria, you know what I mean? Then all of a sudden you're like out on it. So, I mean, that one was kind of a regret. And trust me, that isn't my biggest flop in the world, but, one that anybody can go back and look at and reference, you know what I mean? And actually live it with me. They could go and find that on season 17
Awesome.
on Netflix or wherever it is. And you
You
can
are
go
funny.
relive that with me. But yeah, I was so frustrated on that one. Because I thought it was gonna be my win. I was like, I'm finally gonna win. Like it was like the dish was that good. It tasted that good. I was like, flavor wise, I don't care. If you close your eyes, you got the crispiness from the arari, you got the beautiful like the porridge of the congee. Like it was so much flavor packed into it in 25 minutes or whatever it was I had. There's no way. But it's fine. Sorry, Padma. I get it.
Do you have a favorite cookbook?
Favorite cookbook. Honestly, it's the next one. Like I'm such a fan. I collect so many. It's like I've already got my entire fall. I've already pre-ordered. I'm constantly, adding to the catalog and I'm excited when supporting like, colleagues and friends too, like, are out there like putting their mind to paper. I think it's fun. It's just exploring the next. I'm also like, I kind of think it's important that you kind of go back and you look at, books that kind of change, who we are and how we looked at the kitchen. I mean, I think a lot of people reference the French Laundry Cookbook, the OG, right? Like, I feel like that's a good one. But honestly, the new Professional Chef, you know what I mean? Like, that's not just available to culinary students. Like, you know what I mean? Like, go pick up some stuff and really kind of like learn technique and like learn the basics of like how to build sauces and build stocks and build a pantry and like make your life easier. So I think like fundamental cooking stuff is like really important. And we need to not ignore that because I think the fast pace of life. And I think that's what, the original French Laundry book does for you. There's like stories in there that kind of like take you back to like the root of the ingredients, you know what I mean? Like, and I think a lot of that's really important because I think things move so fast now. We skip what's important. The time it takes to actually caramelize onions, the time that it takes to actually properly roast a piece of fish and get crispy skin and like that technique of basting and like, I mean, like cooking like that soulfully and braises, like people are rushing everything, you know what I mean? And so for me, it's just like you can't build flavor without patience. And I feel like that's the part that we're all losing in cooking. And so anything that kind of helps reset that, I think is really important. I think now we're just putting together a lot of like high acid, high fat, like high salt ingredients and kind of mixing those together and like mommy bomb, like it all tastes great. But like, was that just a bunch of like, condiments put together smartly and that's okay. And that's cool. And it's still like cooking, but like, where is like actually, really building flavor from the raw ingredient, right? Like that type of cooking to me is still very important.
It's fundamental.
Yes.
100%. Do you have a must-have tool?
Must-have tool. What I gravitate towards now? I mean, honestly, I'm very simple. I just like a good sharp chest knife. Like, I mean, that's the most important tool.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it is. Like, honestly, the stone is most important, right? That's how you keep it sharp, you know? You'd be surprised how many people don't have something to actually sharpen their knives with.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
true. What makes you happy as a chef?
What makes me happy, honestly, is, you know, again, I mentioned it earlier, is if I'm able to like change somebody's mind about an ingredient, you know, is always fun. I remember like I'd put beets on the menu when I first opened Volt, and everybody, it was like a part of a tasting menu. And so it was kind of like forced upon everybody. People were like, you know, I hate beets. Like, I only know them as being canned and pickled and blah, blah, blah. And like, so, you know, and it was such a simple ingredient, but like back then, this is 2003 or 8, you know what I mean? So like, I don't know, for some reason it wasn't part of everybody's menu back then. Right. So, you know, to be able to change people's mind about an ingredient, I think is really important and fun as a cook and a chef, but also just changing somebody's day. Like, you know, if somebody's coming in, they had a bad day, they come in, they get an incredible sense of hospitality and it's really genuine, and we're able to like create an experience for someone. And, you know, now I visit tables and people go back and they tell me memories of experiences they've had in our restaurants. And this is like coming full circle now. Like, I'm like, people are walking in the door here and they're like, I remember back in like the early days of like 2010, we celebrated this thing and I remember this dish that we had. I'm like, you remember that from 15 years ago? I don't even remember it. You know what I
Taste
mean?
memories are
You know what I mean?
powerful. They're
Yeah.
powerful.
And so like when those kind of like stories come, like, I'm like, wow, I really impacted somebody's day back then so much. They remember that 15 years later. And it's not like they came in repetitively and had it. They had it once, you know, and like, that's pretty powerful. Like, that's, you know, so to be able to do that in a profession, like, that's just, I don't know. That's why I love what I do.
It's true. I mean, taste memories are powerful. You know, they stand the test of time. All right. You ready? Coffee or tea?
Coffee for sure.
Espresso or drip?
Ooh, espresso.
Milk or no milk?
No milk.
Pancakes, waffles?
Waffles. That's a hard one now.
Oatmeal, yogurt?
Oatmeal.
Bacon, sausage?
Bacon all the way.
Chicken or duck?
That one's tough. I would say I would gravitate towards chicken first. It's weird, but I do. I love a roasted chicken.
Beef or
I just had two the other night. Beef.
quail or squab?
Swab.
Hot dog, hamburger?
Both.
Ketchup, mustard?
One all together.
All together.
Ketchup and mustard? Mustard. Mustard to me, like anything else is just a vehicle for mustard.
Whole grain or Dijon?
Ooh, Dijon. I like the heat.
French fries, onion rings?
French fries.
Taco, burrito?
Taco.
Pasta, noodles?
And pasta.
Ravioli or dumplings?
Ooh, even harder. Now you make want to switch sides.
Raw oysters, raw clams?
Raw oysters.
Lobster or crab?
Crab. Maryland. Come on.
Sea urchin, caviar?
Caviar.
Black or white truffles?
That's a tough one. You would think I would say white truffles, you know, like a really great Perigord black truffle to me sometimes takes first position over a white truffle. Sometimes they're just too heavily like gasoline. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Dessert or cheese?
Cheese.
Meatballs or sausage?
Meatballs all day.
Favorite pizza style?
Favorite pizza style? I mean, I'm Neapolitan, you know what I mean? Like I like that. I've been getting into Detroit lately though. There's something about that. I like it. It's fun. Yeah, there's a guy who's been doing a couple of cool things, you know what I mean, with it, like the Frico, like on the outsides. Have you seen like people building that? Like,
yeah,
there's some playfulness that you can do there that I'm interested in.
Red wine, white wine?
Rosé.
Light beer, dark beer?
Light beer. Yeah. I'm a little bit more like, I'm pushing that stuff down. So
white spirits, dark spirits?
Depends on the season.
Favorite type of sparkling? Champagne, Prosecco, Cava, Lambrusco?
Champagne.
Ice cream, soft serve, gelato, or sorbet?
All the above.
Cup or a cone?
Cup.
Chocolate or fruit?
That's tough. I like both. I like Neapolitan, like vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. How about that?
I'm talking in general. Do you do like straight up chocolate versus fruit?
I thought we're still on ice cream and sorbet.
No,
and gelato.
different.
I like snacking on fruit, honestly. Like I do. Every once in a while though, I'll take a little piece of like, Valrhona chips and pop one of those while I'm working.
Honey or maple syrup?
Honey.
Favorite candy?
Favorite candy? Ooh, I don't know if I have a favorite candy. I mean, I chew Altoids, but I feel like that's not candy. It's a breath mint.
That's What would be your last meal?
My last meal? That's tough. I mean, I've answered this question before in my past, and I don't know what it would be, but I mean, I think for me, like, I know it's going to sound like a little like a layup and whatever. I wouldn't get really specific into it. I'd want to be able to be a part of cooking it. And I want it to be just surrounded with like my friends and family, like, because that's what I believe food is about, is like, it's about gathering people. It's less about like the indulgence sort of thing that I'm going to personally have. I'd want to be able to share that with others. So no matter what, I wouldn't want to be isolated. Like I would want it to be like, with the people I love.
That's awesome. So, folks, you must make sure to find Bryan, whether you are in Maryland, whether you're, heading over to have some steak or going skiing. Make sure you stop at the restaurants, because the combination of these two together is a force to be reckoned with. Bryan, thank you so much for taking time. And if people
Thank
want
you.
to find you on social media, what's the best way for them to find you?
Just at Bryan Voltaggio with a Y. The longer part of the name is harder.
And folks, I'll have links to all their restaurants and social media with this. And thank you all for joining. And Bryan, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Of course. Thanks for listening to How the Sausage is Made. If you've liked what you've heard today, please make sure to like and subscribe. And don't be afraid to tell your friends about it.